بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وقال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي برسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله يا وطاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أدخل معك تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه والسلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي وشافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب اللواء قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء خذا برسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وهامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبريل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال جبريل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك فهبط الأمين جبريل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرؤك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مضية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نام قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لي أبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيهم جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم إلا نزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وجل. ایک سورہ فاتحہ تمام معلومین کے لیے اللهم صل على محمد.
صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. بحضرت تو سلام علیک اے مولا سرم فدائے سرحد باد اے سرے شہداء. سلام من بشمان حاضران صغیر و کبیر کہ در ازائے حسین جملگیر دلگیر. صلوات. اللہ. کوئی اکبر سے جا کہہ دے تمہیں صغرا بلاتی ہے. کوئی اکبر سے جا کہہ دے تمہیں صغرا بلاتی ہے. یہ روتی ہے تو ساتھ اپنے مدینے کو رلاتی ہے. یہ روتی ہے تو ساتھ اپنے مدینے کو رلاتی ہے. کوئی اکبر اور بڑا ہے شور सजाने का, ये अपने हाथ से अकबर तेरा सहरा सजाती है कोई अकबर। अभी सीने पे बरछी मार कर कातिल गया बेटी, किसे पढ़कर सुनाऊं खत तुम्हारा मिल गया बेटी, सदा कर वो बला से दिल बरे ज़हरा की आती है कोई अकबर। और नगाहों के चिने बरछी अली अकबर के सीने से, मोहम्मद अंबिया के साथ आए हैं मदीने से, सरे मैदान अब तकदीर मुझको आज़माती है कोई अकबर। और न कर अब इंतज़ार उसका, वो वापिस आ नहीं सकता, वो चेहरा मुस्तफा जैसा तुम्हें दिखला नहीं सकता, बचा अकबर नहीं सुगरा, तू क्यों उसको बुलाती है कोई अकबर। और कहीं शहजाद दुनिया में मिसाल ऐसी नहीं मिलती, और हुई मुद्दत वो कदमों के निशान मिटने नहीं देती, नकूशे पाए अकबर को हवाओं से बचाती है कोई अकबर। से जा कह दे तुम्हें सुगरा बुलाती है, ये रोती है तो साथ अपने मदीने को रुलाती है कोई अकबर। सलवात।
اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات. پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. ہاں صبر ہے آغاز جس کا اور وفا انجام ہے صبر ہے آغاز جس کا اور وفا انجام ہے حکم آقا سے جسے بس کام ہے حکم آقا سے جسے بس کام ہے نہر سے منہ پھیر کے پیتا ہے جو جام وفا شیر حق کا شیر ہے عباس اس کا نام ہے نہر سے منہ پھیر کے پیتا ہے جو جام وفا شیر حق کا شیر ہے عباس اس کا نام ہے صبر ہے آغاز پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات
بار دیگر بآواز بلند صلوات مجرئی لائے کہاں سے مثل حیدر دوسرا مجرئی لائے کہاں سے مثل حیدر بجھتی نہیں، ساقی ہماری تشنگی ایک سے بجھتی نہیں، ساقی ہماری تشنگی دے مئے حب علی کا بھر کے ساغر، دوسرا مجرئی لائے کہاں سے، خانہ بنت نبی میں جب ہوئے پیدا حسین، خانہ بنت نبی میں جب ہوئے پیدا حسین، مل گیا اسلام کی کشتی کو لنگر، دوسرا مجرئی لائے کہاں سے، تشنہ لب بچوں کی امیدوں پہ پانی پھر گیا، تشنہ لب بچوں کی امیدوں پہ پانی پھر گیا، گر گیا عباس کا بازو جو کٹ کر، دوسرا مجرئی لائے کہاں سے، مثل حیدر، دوسرا مجرئی لائے کہاں سے،
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی
فاتح۔ بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ جب زانوئے حسین پا عباس مر گئے، جب زانوئے حسین پا عباس مر گئے، صدمے غضب کے سبتے نبی پر گزر گئے، خنجر علم کے دل سے جگر تک اتر گئے، چلاتے تھے کہ شیر ہمارے کدھر گئے، چلاتے تھے کہ شیر ہمارے کدھر گئے، واہ حسرتا کے بے کسو بے یار ہو گئے، سر کیسے پیٹیں ہاتھ تو بیکار ہو گئے، اکبر نے رو کے عرض یہ کی اے شہ زمان رونے سے اب ملیں گے نا حضرت کو ہم مجاں لے چلی یہ گھر میں لاشے علمدار نوجوان ایسا نہ ہو نکل پڑیں خیمے سے بیبیاں ایسا نہ ہو نکل پڑیں خیمے سے بیبیاں دریا پہ ننگے سر کہیں بنت علی نائے بچوں کو ساتھ لے کے سکینہ چلی نہ آ چادر اڑھا کے وہاں سے امام امم چلے فرمایا لو کریم نگہبان ہم چلے اکبر تو آگے لے کے وہ پرخون علم چلے سر ننگے پیچھے سید عالی امم چلے جنگل میں شور نالو فریاد و آہ تھا حضرت کے پیچھے اسپِ علمدار شاہت اکبر علم کو خیمے کے اندر جھکا کے لا سر اپنا پیٹتے ہوئے گھر میں حسین آ چلاتے تھے کہ بھائی کو بھائی کہاں سے پا عباس چھوڑ دیا ہائے 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 عباس چھوڑ دیا ہائے 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 چھینا جل نے ہم سے ہمارے دلیر کو سوتے ہوئے ترائی میں چھوڑا اے شیر کو زینب سے رو کے کہنے لگے سرور زمن لے کر نشان کو جائے کہاں اب یہ بے وطن اب تو نہ فوج ہے نہ علمدار سب شکن گھر لوٹ گیا علم کو بڑھاؤ اب بہن لو یہ نشانی شہ دلدل سوار لو پٹکالم کا کھولو پنجا اتار جس دم سنا علم کے بڑھانے کا سب نے نا سروٹ کے پیٹنے لگیں سیدانیاں تما لو الوداع حرم سید انا رایت لٹا کے خاک پا کہنے لگے امام رایت لٹا کے خاک پا کہنے لگے امام بس اب مجھے علمنا علمدار چاہیے پیاسے گلے پخنجرے خونخوار چاہیے बस अब मुझे अलमना अलमदार चाहिए, प्यासे गले पखंजरे खूंखार चाहिए, जब जानुए हुसैन और मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत।
मोमिनीन कराम, आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि एक स्टेप फॉरवर्ड आ जाइए प्लीज़। बोल मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत। एक सूरह फातिहा तमाम मरहूमिन के लिए, खुसूसन जो इस हाज़िरीन मजलिस हैं उनके मरहूमिन के लिए, मोमिनीन मोमिनात के लिए, शोहदे मिल्लत जाफरिया के लिए। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह रब्बिल आलमीन। मोमिनीन कराम, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कोई भी हो, छोटी हो बड़ी हो, बहरहाल उसको फाइनेंस की ज़रूरत होती है। डोनेशन के सिलसिले में आपका तामुन हमेशा रहा है और इसी तरह हम आपसे उम्मीद करते हैं। इस सिलसिले में आप ब्रदर जाहिद से रब्ता कर लें और अपने मरहूमिन के एसार सवाब के लिए कोई भी मजालिस स्पॉन्सर करना चाहते हैं, किसी भी किस्म का डोनेशन देना चाहते हैं तो उन तक कॉन्टैक्ट कर सकते हैं। और ख़वातीन में सिस्टर साइमा है। मज़ीद सर्वे के लिए मैं ब्रदर जाहिद इकबाल को बुलाऊँगा, वो आपसे कुछ मिनट लेना चाहेंगे, कुछ एक्सप्लेन करना चाहेंगे। जी ब्रदर जाहिद। पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत।
Assalamu alaikum. Those of you who don't know, my name is Iqbal Zahid. I'm a volunteer of Lady Fatimah Salamullah organization here in Milton. And I just want to take a few minutes to just talk about a very key information that we think is very key for our operation in Milton and Halton region in general. Based on the attendance so far in this event, mashallah, we are very encouraged. And personally myself and our whole team feel like there are so many new faces, new in the sense that, maybe new families moved in Milton that we are not get connected before. So we thought it's a good opportunity for us to get connected and get more information about the new families, because it's plain and simple. If we have to offer services, community is the stakeholder, and we need to know their population breakdown, the segments, so that we can plan short-term or long-term our services that we want to offer to the community. Not only that, there's so much, mashallah, youth that I'm seeing here, and their talent and expertise is going untapped if we don't talk to them. So our team feel very encouraged to see that, and we think that it's almost unnecessary for us to talk to you guys, find out what your real challenges are, and then based on that feedback, plan our events, our surveys, our programs, shape them so that we can help you out and you help us out. We are Imam Bargah and more. Our platform is very flexible. Anything that we feel that community needs, and it's within the red lines of our Islamic teachings and akhlaq, which is the guidance is provided to us by the ulama ikram, we are willing to offer that to the community. So in that sense, we are very flexible. But first thing is that we need to know the community we have based in Milton and Oakville or Burlington, in general Halton region. So I would request you, Momineen, who are here, and if you can just take this message back to the other friends who are not here yet, to please cooperate. We have a survey out there. I'm running a slideshow, and if you can just scan that, give your feedback. It would be very appreciative if you can leave your phone number if we want to contact you, and again, talk to you more details. That would be great. We have a WhatsApp group that we post events. It's admin post only, so there's no other chat going on. So if you like to join that group, then again, you are connected, we are connected, you will get to know the events that we are planning, and you can get in touch with us and leave your ideas and whatnot. That's the only thing I want to talk to about. Asim Bhai already mentioned about donation. Again, it's a no-brainer. Anything and everything that we do here is based on your donations, so any help you can extend, pledges, one-time donations. This presentation also has a QR code for the pledge form. Once you join the group, you can get those links as well, so that we would appreciate help in that financial side as well. With that, I'm going to request Sheikh Muhammad Kassamali to please come on the member, please. Loud salawat.
Salli ala Muhammad.
الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آل بيته الأطيبين الأطهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Dear brothers and sisters, because the day after tomorrow is the day of Ashura, I thought it would be appropriate today to share a few words about what we have been advised to do on the day of Ashura. And for this purpose, I'm looking at some of the statements that are there in this famous book that you have all heard of called Mafatihul Jinan of Sheikh Abbas Qummi, rahmatullah alayh. Just a word about Sheikh Abbas Qummi. And incidentally, also every day you might have noticed I have a big fat book of the Maqtal of Imam al-Hussein that I'm looking at. That's also a book that was compiled by the same Sheikh Abbas Qummi called Nafasul Mahmoom, in which he's gone. So basically Sheikh Abbas Qummi was a very, very famous scholar who lived about 100 years ago. He died less than 100 years ago. And his main works that he's famous for are in history and hadith. So he was an expert in hadith and history studies. He had read all of the hadith and all of the famous books of Sunni and Shia history. And with his knowledge of hadith, he wrote these amazing, amazing beneficial books. So for example, in Nafas al-Mahmoom, when he comes to, for example, today we'll discuss the tragedy of the martyrdom of Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, he brings different accounts. That Irshad, a famous book, says this. And then Luhuf says this. And then Biharul Anwar says this. So he has that, he's looking at all the primary sources before him, and very beautifully, with a lot of style, he brings all of this information. But more important than his academic status was his purity and his sincerity. He was known to be a person of worship, a person of taqwa. I'll just narrate one story to get an idea of how pious and how careful he was, and then inshallah we'll look at what he told us about the day of Ashura. So he lived for a while he was from Qum, clearly, his name is Qummi, but he lived for a while in Mashhad, and also definitely he lived in Najaf al-Ashraf for a while. He's buried in Najaf in one of the rooms around the Sahan of Amirul Mu'mineen in Najaf, there's many rooms that unfortunately most of them are closed. For example, the room where Ayatollah Khu'i rahmatullah alayh is buried, that is open. The room where Ayatollah Hakim, who passed away just recently, is buried, that one is open. But many of the other rooms that have eminent scholars buried in them, they're closed and locked, unfortunately. So Sheikh Abbas Qummi is buried in one of those rooms next to his teacher, another very, very important scholar of hadith called Mirza Nuri or Muhaddith Nuri. Anyways, there's a story that once in the city of Mashhad, he used to lead namaz in the haram of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Specifically in the haram, there's a famous mosque called Masjid Gohar Shad. Okay, he used to lead namaz in Masjid Gohar Shad, and one day after he completed the Dhuhr namaz, he didn't stay for the Asr namaz. Right after Dhuhr, normally he would pray the Asr. He told people that I gotta go, I'm not gonna be here, and he left. The next day he didn't come. Again the day after he didn't come. People started to get worried, maybe something has happened to him. So they went to go inquire what had happened, and basically they realized that the story was this, that when he was leading namaz, there was such a large crowd of people behind him, and when he was in ruku, he heard from far away somebody was saying, Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. You know, normally like when you want to join the Jamaat namaz, if the Imam is in ruku, you say, Ya Allah, or you say this sentence, Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. And basically the thought occurred to him that, wow, look at me, I'm so famous that such a huge crowd of people are following me. And basically a little bit of arrogance came in his heart. And he was so worried about that, he wanted to punish himself, he wanted to take care of that thought of arrogance, that for a while he stopped leading the prayers. This was the level of diqqat, the level of vigilance our ulama have and the pious people have over there. Forget about their actions. We're trying to work on our actions. They're beyond actions. They're worrying about their thoughts and their internal states. May Allah bless him and elevate his status in the hereafter.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So I'll read a few sentences and one narration that he quotes in this discussion about the a'mal and the adab that a Shia should have on the day of Ashura. He says it is appropriate that the Shia should hold themselves back from working on the day of Ashura, from taking care of their dunyawi hajat, their needs of this dunya. And they should not buy things. The word he uses is like save things for their household, but we can see from stuff later on that he means they shouldn't go out and purchase things. It shouldn't be a day of shopping and buying things. And they should basically, the Shia should just dedicate their time to crying, to reciting the musibah of Imam Hussein, remembering what happened, performing ma'atam. And then he says they should give condolences to one another when they meet by saying, أَعْظَمَ اللَّهُ أُجُورَنَا بِمُصَابِنَا بِالْحُسَيْنِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ وَجَعَلَنَا وَإِيَّاكُمْ مِنَ الطَّالِبِينَ بِثَارِهِ. There's a sentence that it's recommended to say to console one another when we meet one another. By the way, that doesn't mean it's wrong to say Salamun Alaikum. If you want to say Salamun Alaikum, it's always mustahab to say Salamun Alaikum. But for the day of Ashura, there's this special sentence that when you meet one another, you give condolences to one another in that way. Then later on he says also it is appropriate to not eat. It's good that the Shias do not eat food or drink on this day without the niyyah of fasting. And then in the late afternoon they can open this, they can, as we say, faka shikani, right? They open this kind of fast they were doing. And then he quotes Allama Majlisi, a previous scholar from before, important scholar. He says that it is better not to fast on the 9th and 10th of Muharram. Because the Banu Umayyah, they used to fast out of happiness, out of barakah. And so this was basically these things like shopping. This was something that they used to do. They used to consider this a day of barakah. And one of the things they used to do is they used to fast out of giving thanks to Allah. God forbid, such evil people, that we killed Imam Hussein. We're so happy that we fast on this day. And they would go shopping and all the things they needed for that year. You know, over here we have like Boxing Day. That was their Boxing Day. La'natullahi alayhim. They were so happy on that day, they would go and shop. Then he quotes a hadith of Imam Raza. Imam Raza alayhi salam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
that whoever leaves aside working for this dunya on the day of Ashura, Allah will fulfill all the needs of this dunya and the akhirah that they have. Whoever for whom the day of Ashura is the day of their calamity, the day of their sadness, the day of their crying, then Allah will make sure the day of judgment is the day of their happiness. And then he goes on. And then Shaykh Abbas Qumi brings examples of fabricated hadith that the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, the Nasibis, and unfortunately till today many of our brothers from the Ahlul Sunnah, they believe a lot of these hadith. It's not their fault. Many of them are not Nasibis. They're not enemies of the Ahlul Bayt. This is what they were taught. This is what was written down in their books. That the day of Ashura was such a day of barakah. That all the good things that happened in history happened on the day of Ashura. And they have du'as like this to recite that were fabricated. That, oh Allah, oh the one who accepted the tawbah of Adam on Ashura. Oh the one who lifted Idris up to the heavens on Ashura. Oh the one who made the ark of Nuh stop on Mount Judi on Ashura. O the one who saved Ibrahim from the fire of hell, of the fire of Nimrud, right? Nimrud on the day of Ashura. All of these are fabrications. These are all ahadith that the Banu Umayyah made up to make the day of Ashura a day of happiness and a day of barakah. But for the Shia of the Ahlul Bayt, this day is always a day of sadness and grief. So as much as possible, if we are able to, it would be very, very good to not go to school on that day, to not go to work on that day, and put aside our time for crying and remembering Imam Hussein. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
We return to our discussion, dear brothers and sisters, about living a Husseini lifestyle. By the grace of Allah, we talked about the rights of our parents, the rights of our mother and father, and then for the last few nights we've been talking about the rights of our spouse. The last point that I made addressing the men was about controlling our gaze. And I spoke about how this is a very important thing in Islam. One of the sins in Islam that we have been warned about is looking inappropriately at a non-mahram. I'll just make one or two points more about our eyes and our gaze, and then today, inshallah, we will move on to the rights of the child. Islamic advice to parents who have children. So with regards to controlling the eyes, I just wanted to say that, our eyes and our tongue, it's very easy. It doesn't take a lot of effort for us to use our eyes and our tongue. Most people, without even thinking, they will look at something, they will say something. They have no control over what they say. They don't think about what they say. Whereas in Islam, we have been advised very strongly, we have been commanded to control these things. These faculties of ours can be used to obey Allah, to get closer to Allah, to achieve paradise, but they can also be used, if we don't control them, to go to the fire of hell. And so we have to be people who slowly train ourselves to think that, okay, what did I look at today? God forbid, did I look at anything haram? And then, seek forgiveness from Allah. Make a pact, make a plan, a firm resolution to not do that again tomorrow. Slowly by slowly, if we every day put aside just a few minutes, it doesn't take much time, a few minutes to kind of think about, play a movie in our mind that what did I do from morning to evening, and think about our actions. Seek forgiveness if we made a mistake. Give Allah thanks and say, thank you, O Allah, if we obeyed Him. We slowly have to work on this, and this will make us a very, very powerful spiritual person. Dear brothers and sisters, this is true spirituality. Some people, they think that to be spiritual is to eat less meat. Some people, they think it is to always be on the musalla, the janamaz, to always fast. I'm not saying that fasting in the janamaz is not important. It is very important. But the fundamental pillar, the foundation of spirituality is to not sin, to do what is wajib and avoid what is haram. And at times it's very difficult. When our spouse says something rude to us, to control our tongue and not say something rude again, it's not easy. It takes a lot of control and a lot of strength. But yeah, as I said, that these same faculties, we can also use them to achieve such closeness to Allah and such thawab in the hereafter. In one of the ahadith, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
he says that he told his companions that nobody looks with kindness at their parents, with a look of love and kindness at their parents, except that Allah writes for them an accepted Hajj. That they went to Hajj mabrura, Hajj that was accepted, for every glance that they look at their parents. The companion who heard this was surprised. He said, what if he looks 100 times at his parents? The Prophet said, even if he were to look 100,000 times at his parents, Allah would write that Hajj for them. So we have to realize that these faculties of ours can be used to please Allah, and they can be used to disobey Allah as well. Anyways, let us now move on, inshaAllah, to the rights of our children upon us. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So I will start with the narration that I used earlier when we were talking about the right of the mother and the right of the father. It's slightly lengthy, but just bear with me. We'll read what Imam Sajjad wrote in this beautiful narration called Risalatul Huquq, the Charter of Rights, the Treatise of Rights. As I had mentioned, he outlines 50 or 51 different rights that a human being must abide by, with regards to their body parts, with regards to different acts of worship, but most importantly with regards to people that we interact with in society. So he says in this hadith, and the right of your child is that you know that he is from you and is associated to you during these few days in this world. Your child is somehow connected to you, and he'll explain why. Through his good and bad. You as a parent, you are answerable with regards to yourself and with regards to him for what has been entrusted to you. What has been entrusted to a parent? Such as educating him, educating your child in good conduct, pointing him in the direction of his Lord, the direction of Allah, and helping him in obeying Allah. We'll talk about this more. Let me just finish the narration right now. Therefore you shall either receive reward or shall be punished. So parents have a responsibility with regards to their children that if they fulfill that responsibility, they will be rewarded. If they don't fulfill that, then God forbid, they will be punished. Imam goes on, regarding your child's affairs, act like those who during these few days in this world beautify their scroll of deeds. They make that record of their actions very beautiful by their positive effect on their child. And they are excused before their Lord because they strived to nurture their child and guarded him well and asked Allah's help for him. And at the end of the day, there is, as I said, Imam ends a lot of these rights with this sentence, and there is no strength except with Allah. So, what can we understand from this narration? One of the things that we very clearly can see is that parents have a responsibility with regards to their children. And I indicated this earlier when I was talking about the rights of the mother and the father, that a mother and father have a very deep and profound effect, much more than an animalistic relationship. A human being has an emotional, an ethical, a spiritual relationship with their child. The mother and father provide that environment in which the child is going to grow. Does that mean that whatever happens is the fault of the parents? No, not always. Okay, even we had prophets of Allah, Nabi Nuh alayhi salam in the Holy Quran, his son was a bad person. He refused to board the ark and he was not saved. He was drowned with all the disbelievers. So sometimes a prophet of Allah, even a very pious person, might do their duty and the child uses their free will to go against Allah. And vice versa as well. Sometimes maybe the parents were not good parents, but the child is a very pious child. That definitely happens. But the point is, the parents generally, they play a role. They can help the child out. They can make it easier for the child to grow in the right direction. They can keep the child in a pure environment. They can do certain things that inshallah we'll talk about to make the child more inclined to Allah, to the Ahlul Bayt, to the path of Islam. And in that sense, the parents are responsible. If they fall short in this responsibility, then they are answerable to Allah. But yeah, basically one important point I wanted to make is that one of the most valuable and one of the most important things that a human being can do is to train somebody else, to rear another human being. That's the job of the prophets of Allah, the job of the awliya of Allah. We look at our ulama sometimes, like I spoke about Shaykh Abbas Qummi rahmatullah alayh, and we sometimes judge them with regards to like the books that they wrote or the material kind of effect that they had. Books that they wrote or schools that they, I don't know, were the principal of, or hospitals that they helped to build. All those are good, all those are important. But more important than that and more profound and more beneficial for the hereafter of a human being is to train another human being. And in that sense, we can see the importance of a mother and father. We can see the importance of a mother. Don't let anybody ever put down the status of a housewife or a mother. That, oh, a mother should feel low that she doesn't have a job like other ladies in society. If she's putting aside her time to rear children, what is there that's more valuable in the eyes of Allah than that? Nothing. So, this is a very, very important point we have to recognize. It's narrated that one day Prophet Isa, Ruhullah, he was passing by a grave, and because of his high status, he realized that a man in this grave was being punished. 1 year later, Prophet Isa, again alayhi salam, he was passing by the same grave, and this time he realized that this man was no longer being punished. And so he asked Allah that, oh Allah, what happened? Last year I walked by and the person who was in this grave was being punished, and this year he's not being punished. So Allah revealed to him that, Ya Ruh Allah, innahu adraka lahu waladun salih, فأصلح طريقا وآوى يتيما فغفرت له بما عمل ابنه ما عمل ابنه. He said, O Ruhullah, verily he had a righteous child. He had a child who was salih, and that child became baligh now. And he helped people, he fixed the roads of the people, he gave shelter to people, he gave shelter to the orphans. And because of the good actions of this child, I forgave this man in the grave. So this is a reality, that sometimes people may have certain sins that they committed, but because of their children, Allah will forgive them. And vice versa as well. Maybe they were apparently a good person, but they didn't worry about the tarbiyat of their kids, and then because of their kids, they will be punished in the hereafter. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Very quickly, I'll just begin now another discussion, and then we will continue it tomorrow with the grace of Allah. And that is this, that one of the fundamentals that Islam teaches us with regards to doing tarbiyah of our kids and to training our kids in an Islamic way, one of the fundamentals is to show love to our kids. You might think that that's a very natural thing, even everybody shows love to their kids. But think about it, I don't think that's the case. Many times parents, they have not, maybe they themselves were raised in a family which was not very loving. They are very quick to be angry with their kids, and they don't show any manifestations of love. They've never kissed their child. We have a hadith where somebody came to the Prophet and told the Prophet of Allah that, I have never kissed a child. And when that man went away, the Prophet told his companions, I think that person is a person of the hellfire. Okay, so to kiss our children, to show love to our children, of course with wisdom, with certain limits. Love doesn't mean that we give them anything, even something that will harm them. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But basically showing love to our children is one of the teachings of Islam, one of the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. Today, inshallah, we are going to, when we come to the Masiba, we'll talk about Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. There's a beautiful hadith that I wanted to read that shows the loving relationship that Amirul Mu'mineen showed to his children, including, in this story, Hazrat Abbas is present. It's narrated that once when they were very young, Hazrat Abbas and Bibi Zainab must have been a bit older, but Hazrat Abbas was very young. So Bibi Zainab and Hazrat Abbas are both in the presence of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Abbas is on the right side and Zainab is on the left side. And so Imam Ali alayhi salam, he looks at Abbas and he says, "Oh Abbas, say one. Qul wahid." And Abbas says wahid. Then Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, "Say two. Qul ithnain." And Abbas says, "Inni astahi ana aqul ithnain bil lisan alladhi qultu bihi wahid." He said, "I can't say two with that same tongue that I said one." Put this aside. This is the tawheed that the children of the Ahlul Bayt from a young age, they have already reached the highest levels of tawheed. But the point that I wanted to bring was this, that later in that same narration, Amirul Mu'mineen, he's talking to Zainab salamullahi alayha, and Zainab says, "O our father, ya abatah, do you love us?" And he says, "Na'am, awladuna akbaduna." That our I think they say this in Urdu as well, right? Jigar. Jigar is like a endearing term, a loving term. Kabad in Arabic means the same thing, liver. But it's an endearing term, that our children are like our liver, that we love them so much. This is the love. Again, we have so many ahadith. In one of the ahadith, the sixth Imam says that إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيَرْحَمُ الْعَبْدَ لِشِدَّةِ حُبِّهِ لِوَلَدِهِ. That verily Allah shows mercy upon a man because of his extreme love for his child. So this basically, the point is this, that one of the teachings of Islam is that we have to show a lot of love and be full of love, unconditionally love. That doesn't mean we're not going to guide our children. We're not going to put limits at times. We're not going to put our foot down at times and tell them that, "No, my son, my daughter, this is harmful for you. You can't do this." No, we have to have that authority as a parent, but with love. With nothing but love. Inshallah, we'll talk more tomorrow about some of the effects, some of the good effects that come out of showing love to children. Inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us all the tawfiq and the success to learn these beautiful teachings of Islam and implement them in our life. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the dhuhur of our Imam, to make his heart happy with all of us, to break the back of the oppressors and the enemies of Islam today, which will not, of course, happen totally until he comes. So inshallah, for that reason, even more so, we ask for his appearance to be quicker and hastened. We ask Allah to help all of those who are serving the cause of Islam, helping the Ahlul Bayt, helping Islam, all of the people of piety in this world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all of those people who are sick from this gathering and from all the believers and all the Muslims around the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept the hajat and the needs and desires of all of the believers and Muslims, and especially those in this gathering. And lastly, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if there is any reward to these gatherings, He gives it as a gift to the Ahlul Bayt and the Prophets and the Imams and all of the awliya of Allah and all of those people who have helped us in our life and who have a right upon us. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب If they call me disgraceful, I'll say Hussein. If they tell me you're sinful, I'll say Hussein. In all my worries, my fear and my pain, my heart becomes hopeful when I say Hussein. Dear brothers and sisters, today we want to remember somebody who words cannot describe who he was. Abul Fadl al-Abbas, Saqqa. There's a story about a poet, a great Shia poet who lived about 200 years ago in Iraq. His name was Sheikh Muhammad Riza al-Azari. He was a great poet, and even his brother was a great poet. So there's a story about him that is narrated that one day he started to write a poem for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and Hazrat Abbas. And so he wrote one line, يَوْمٌ أَبُو الْفَضْلِ اسْتَجَارَ بِهِ الْهُدَى. That on that day that al-Huda, Huda here he meant Imam Hussein. On that day that Imam Hussein sought refuge in Abbas. And then he stopped. He said, what have I written? How could I say that? Maybe Imam Hussein wouldn't be happy with such a statement. That's too heavy of a statement. That night, Muhammad Rida, he saw Imam Hussein in his dream. Imam Hussein came to him and said, no, you're correct. I did seek refuge from Abbas on the day of Ashura. And he said, he completed the poem. He recited another line of the poem for Muhammad Rida to continue, that وَالشَّمْسُ مِنْ كِدَرِ الْعَجَاجِ لِثَامِهَا. That on that day the sun was hidden by the cloud of the war that was happening. So Muhammad Rida, when he woke up, he wrote a lengthy poem about Imam Hussein and Hazrat Abbas, about Hazrat Abbas more. I'll read one line of that poem and then inshallah we move towards the musibah. In one line of that poem, Muhammad Rida says that اليوم نامت أعين بك لم تنم. Oh Abbas, now that you have been martyred, today there are eyes that are peacefully sleeping. The enemies of Imam Hussein, the army of Yazid, today they are very rahat. They're very happy, they're relaxed that you have now been killed. But there are other people, there are other young girls who now cannot sleep that you have been martyred, O Abbas. In different ahadith and ziyarat, we see different qualities of Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. Let me narrate a few of these hadith to see some of these qualities, and then we'll see how these qualities manifested themselves on the day of Ashura. In one hadith, the sixth Imam says, كَانَ عَمُّنَا الْعَبَّاسِ نَافِذُ الْبَصِيرَ صُلْبُ الْإِيمَانِ. Our uncle Abbas was somebody who had basira. He had wisdom, insight. He knew when to act. And he was somebody with solid faith. He fought with Abu Abdullah, Imam al-Hussein, and he went through a bala. He was tested, but he passed his test very well. In another hadith from the fourth Imam, he says, رَحِمَ اللَّهَ الْعَبَّاسِ. May Allah have mercy on Abbas. فَلَقَدْ آثَرَ وَأَبْلَى وَفَدَى أَخَاهُ بِنَفْسِهِ. That he sacrificed himself. He gave himself for the cause of his brother. So a few different qualities we see. One is sacrifice. One is basira, that he knew when to act and how to act with wisdom. And one is that he went through a certain difficulty. Where is it that we see these different qualities on the day of Ashura and on the plains of Karbala? In terms of sacrifice, maybe we can say one place where he sacrificed was when Shimr la'anatullahi alayhi came to the camp of Imam al-Hussein and he cried out, "Where are the sons of my sister?" You see, Abul Fadl al-Abbas had three other brothers who were there on the day of Ashura. Their names were Abdullah, Ja'far, and Uthman. All four of these brave and great brothers were the sons of Amirul Mu'mineen, but their mother was Ummul Baneen, this great lady in history, Rahmatullah alayha. Baneen had some family relationship with Shimr, la'anatullah alayhi. So before the tragedy of Karbala, Shimr comes to the camp and he calls out, "Where are the sons of my sister?" They ignore him. Imam Hussein tells Abbas, "No, go respond to him." And they come, and Shimr tells them that, "Ukhruju ilayya, come out, you are safe. You don't need to kill yourself with your brother Hussein." They insult him, they curse him. They say, "Woe be upon you. Are you going to leave us alone, whereas you won't leave alone the son of the messenger, Sayyiduna wa akhana, our master and our brother?" You know, la'anat be on your aman nameh, this guarantee that you're giving us. Forget about it. That is sacrifice. What about basira and wisdom? Where can we see that Abbas alayhi salam knew how to act? He put aside his emotions that any normal person would have, and he acted as was his responsibility. Maybe one thing we can say is that he sent his 3 brothers ahead of him to go and give their lives for Hussein. Never did he stop to think that I have an old mother who is all alone in Medina. I have a young son who is in Medina. No, when the time came, when the other Banu Hashim had been killed, he sent his brothers and he told them to go and give their life for Hussein. But where is it that we can see the difficulty that Abbas went to? Maybe we can see it at this final instance. The time came when Abbas alayhi salam saw that his brother is all alone, and he came up to his brother and he said, "Ya akhi, hal min rukhsa?" "Oh my brother, do you now give me permission to go?" Hussein starts to cry bitterly and he says, "Oh my brother, you are the one who holds the flag of my army." "Oh Hussein, there's no army left. You are the one who holds the flag of my army. If you go, there will be nothing left of my army." Abbas says, "Oh Hussein, I'm tired now. I'm tired of these enemies. I want to go take my revenge from these hypocrites." Hussein tells him, "If that's the case, then go and try to get some water for these children." Abbas goes and he tries to talk to the enemy. He tries to warn them and remind them, but unto no avail. He comes back to his brother. At this time he hears the cries of the young children. Al-Atash, Al-Atash. The young children in the camp of Hussein are so thirsty that they are crying for water. Abbas alayhi salam, he climbs on his horse, he takes the spear and he takes the water bag and he heads out towards the Furat. 4,000 of the enemy army surround him and they start to fire arrows at him. But this is the son of Ali. Somehow he is able to split through them and he fights them. He kills 80 of the enemy and he reaches the water of Furat. He wants to drink something from the water. He lifts some water in his hand. At this time, he remembers the thirst of Hussein. He throws the water back down and he fills his water bag. He carries it on his right shoulder and he heads back towards the camp. At one point, he is stopped by the enemy. They surround him and he fights them. But one man against an entire army, how much can he do? The time comes that one of the enemy soldiers come forward and they cut off his right hand. But Abbas doesn't give up. He takes the water bag and he puts it on his left shoulder. But shortly later they come and they sever his left hand as well. But Abbas still doesn't give up. He takes the water bag in his teeth and he starts to continue to go forward. The time comes that an arrow pierces this water bag and the water falls onto the floor. A short time later, another arrow pierces his chest and he falls down to the floor of Karbala, calling out to his brother, Adrikni.
It's narrated that when Imam al-Hussein came to the body of Abbas crying, he said, Al-an inkasara dhahri. Oh Abbas, now my back has been broken. Now I have no hope left after you. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. ماتم حسين.
مظلوم اشکیا میں دیتا تمہیں صدا ہے، غازی تمہارا لاشا مقتل میں کیوں پڑا ہے، میری جو گئی کمر ہے، ہر سمت اشکیا ہے، آواز دو کہاں ہو، مظلوم پوچھتا ہے، غازی تمہارا لاشا، لاشے کو میرے بھیا خیمے نہ لے کے جاؤ، معصوم مر نہ جائے، پانی نہیں ملا ہے، غازی تمہارا لاشا مقتل میں کیوں پڑا ہے، غازی یا حسین حسین یا حسین عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے، جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے، زمانہ تجھے روئے، دلال یہ پہرے پہ ستمگار کھڑا ہے، دلال یہ پہرے پہ ستمگار کھڑا ہے، کیسے تیرے لاشے پہ سکینہ تجھے روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روکے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھے روکے جس وقت اٹھایا نہ گیا لاش جوا کا جس وقت اٹھایا نہ گیا لاش جوا کا شہر اس گھڑی اکبر سے زیادہ تجھے روئے شہر اس گھڑی اکبر سے زیادہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ 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 تجھے روئے زینب نے کہا شام میں غریباں میں ہے غازی زینب نے کہا شام میں غریباں میں ہے غازی بے پردہ مجھے دیکھ کے بابا تجھے روئے بے پردہ مجھے دیکھ کے بابا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ 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 تجھے روئے مشکیزہ کہیں جسم کہیں ہاتھ کہیں ہے مشکیزہ کہیں جسم کہیں ہاتھ کہیں ہے جا جا کے کہاں فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے جا جا کے کہاں فاطمہ زہرا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ 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 تجھے روئے ارمان سکینہ کا تھا جتنا تجھے روتی ارمان سکینہ کا تھا جتنا تجھے روتی سجاد تیری قبر پہ اتنا تجھے روئے سجاد تیری قبر پہ اتنا تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ 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 تجھے روئے سجدے کے لیا ہاتھ سجدے کے لیے جب لیا ہاتھوں کا سہارا سجدے کے لیے جب لیا ہاتھوں کا سہارا تو سجاد مسلے پہ ہمیشہ تجھے روئے سجاد مسلے پہ ہمیشہ تجھے روئے عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ 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 تجھے روئے بن ہاتھوں کے کس طرح تو گھوڑے سے گرا تھا بن ہاتھوں کے کس طرح تو گھوڑے سے گرا تھا یہ سن کے بہت اہل مدینہ تجھے روئے یہ سن کے بہت اہل مدینہ हक है जमाना तुझे रोए, अब्बास तेरा हक है जमाना तुझे रोए,
अब्बास तेरा हक है जमाना तुझे रोए।
जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, सब बोल के बिस्मिल्लाह। या गाजी जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, आले इमरान कहा और जिंदान कहा, ले बहन कैद हुई तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, एक दफा गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, सुनाया गाजी। हमको पानी न मिले तेरी खुशबू तो रहे, तेरे बाजू न कटे चाहे मशकी जाची दे, ये मगर हो न सका तेरे बाजू है जुदा, तुझ पे है तशना नबी तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, या गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा दे, एक दफा तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती, धूप में तू था शजर, तू ना आया गाजी। धूप में तू था शजर तुझसे आबाद था घर, है बरहना मेरा सर क्या नहीं तुझको खबर, है मेलमदार वफा तुझ बहन को बाखुदा, तुझसे ढारस्ती बड़ी तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से घनी मैं सदा देती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से जियो जियो मैं सदा देती, एक दफा तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से आ गई शाम अलम मैं सदा देती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। आ गई शाम अलम टूट गए अहले हरम, रेत पर जलती हुई हो गया ठंडा आलम, पुरसा देने के लिए मुझसे मिलने के लिए आ गए बाबाली तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती जियो तीर एक दफा तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी क्या कहूँ शेर सदा देती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। क्या कहूँ शेर मेरे बेरिदा हमको लिए, ये मुसलमान सारे शहर दर शहर गए, खिलकते कूफा कभी खिलकते शाम कभी, बारहा हम पे हंसी तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी मैं सदा देती रही, एक दफा तू ना आया غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی. کتنی بے بس
صدا دیتی رہی سنایا غازی.
کتنی بے بستی بہر ہے شہنشاہ وفا. نام لے لے کے میرا جب یہ ظالم نے کہا ناز تاجے پہ تجھے اب بلاؤ نہ اسے. اور میں روتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی. میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی. میں صدا دیتی رہی ایک دفعہ تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی.
میں صدا دیتی رہی سنایا غازی.
قید خانے میں قضا جب سکینہ کو ملی دیکھے کرتے کا کفن بچی دفنائی گئی. اس گھڑی نام تیرا صورت ناد علی بس میں دہراتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چھنی. میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی. کیا حسین کیا حسین کیا حسین کیا حسین. ہائے ہائے شام ہائے ہائے زینب ہائے ہائے شام ہائے ہائے زینب ہائے ہائے شام. عابد بیمار تھا وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا. اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا. اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین. شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی سینے پہ جوش آ کے پلی سینے پہ جوش آ کے پلی. جس کی ابا بن میں جلی جس کی ابا بن میں چلی منہ پر تماچوں کے نشان. مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین 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 یا حسین حسین حسین. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. متوجہ زیارت. السلام علیک یا نبی اللہ السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ السلام علیک یا حجت اللہ السلام علیک یا باعث الہدی السلام علیک یا حبیب اللہ السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. السلام علیک یا ابا عبد اللہ الحسین السلام علیک یا ابن رسول اللہ السلام علیک یا ابن امیر المومنین و ابن سید الوسین السلام علیک یا ابن فاطمة زہراء سیدۃ نساء العالمین
السلام عليك يا مولاي وعلى أنصارك المستشهدين معك جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام عليك يا مغيث الشية والزوار في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليك يا أنيس النفوس. السلام عليك أيها المدفون بأرض طوس. السلام عليك وعلى آبائك السبع وأبنائك الأربع ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا قانع الكفر والطغيان. السلام عليك يا دافع الظلم والعدوان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وجعلنا من أنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله